And then I got to thinking to myself, I'm like, you know, how much more power could the 1000cc actually have than the 600? And oh my gosh, I was 100% wrong. I have been riding for a long while. With that being said, this bike scares the mess out of me. You know, it's really gonna unlock the bike itself. You know, this is one of those things that, like, it doesn't make it from the factory, but once you flash and tune it and unlock all that power, all the torque and everything, yeah, it 100% has it. It definitely does. Alright, so I know I've been riding this bike for a while and I've never formally introduced it. So this is my 2019 CBR1000RR SP1. Now, the thing about this bike is in 2000, I believe 15 is when they started making the SP versions. And with this one, they made an SP1 and SP2 and then the base model. Now, the base model has your regular just black rims and stuff. It's got the same, you know, colors kind of schemes and stuff. The biggest thing about this one versus the base model, or the SP2, so you got an SP, you got this lighter subframe, which can only hold one person at a time. It does not allow for you to add pegs to the rear subframe of these bikes. Their weight is only rated for like 243 pounds or something like that. It's a very, very lighter weight. The other thing were the Öhlins electronic suspension, the full Öhlins electronic suspension. The Brembo brakes over the standard, I think it's Takiko, or however you say it. This bike also comes standard with a quick shifter versus the base model where you can upgrade to the quick shifter, but it does not come standard to it, as well as ABS. So ABS was another feature that you could add to the base model, but was not an option to not have it on the SP1 and 2. That was upgraded, and then I believe that was really it. There's not a whole lot of big difference. Now, and when you got the SP2 versus the SP1, you got internal engine upgrades with that one. After they had gotten rid of the SP versions, they came out, of course, with what everybody knows as the Fireblade in 2021. It was the pinnacle of like next generation Honda bikes, and the CBR1000RR is way different than the SPs. So of course everybody knows that the 1000RR has a whole lot more different stuff than the regular base CBRs. Now, with mine specifically, I've added a couple of things to kind of personalize it to me. One of the biggest things that I did to this bike was I put on a full exhaust system. Now, I ended up going with the Yoshimura full exhaust all the way back. I've had it flashed and tuned, and shout out to P1 Moto. He ended up putting 2 different maps on there for me specifically and how I ride and stuff. Does fantastic work. So if you know P1 or you heard about him, definitely look him up, check him out. It does really great, fantastic work. I added the frame sliders here, the engine guards, both the protectors on the front and rear rims to help protect the swing arm and the front forks and stuff if I were to ever go down. So those are some upgraded things and things that I've done to the bike. Now, this is a 1000. I have been riding for a long while. With that being said, this bike scares the mess out of me. It genuinely, truly does. Now, I will say this bike it's incredibly quick. It's incredibly fast. Now, Honda has never been known to make the most power out of any of their higher end 1000cc sports bikes. They just don't. But where they do get away with less horsepower, they make up for in weight. So although this is one of the lower horsepowered motorcycles, it does have a very equivalent torque, and it weighs less. It's actually about 20 to 25 pounds lighter than most of your standard 1000cc sport bikes. It really kind of just depends on like which one you get, and looking at the wet weights and stuff like that. And that's where they kind of get away from the fact that they don't make the most power, and that's okay. I've never been about power as far as like top speed runs and everything else like that. And don't get me wrong, I do like to go fast, and this bike is extremely quick. It's not in the least little bit for an inexperienced rider at all. You know, this bike will, I mean, it absolutely launches. But it's very, very quick, very, very powerful, but it's still, you know, somewhat tameable to me. Now, I like hitting the corners more than anything. That's probably my best aspect, and what I love to do the most is actually ride corners and go to curvy roads. I love the feeling of being in the middle of that corner, just kind of laying it over and just having all that force and power going in and out of the corners. The bike will do really good top speeds. It does have a lot of power and does want to go fast in a straight line. That's the bike's not incapable of doing those things. And there's several people, you know, I've played around with several people, you know, my bike does hold its own. And I'm a little bit bigger of a person. I don't weigh a ton, but you know, I'm a little bit heavier than most of the riders, especially that I'm going against, you know. So that kind of makes a big difference between like the power of my bike versus the power of their bike. And then you kind of really get a comparison, like, you know, my bike, no chump. It's, you know, it's up there still running. It is a 1000cc sports bike, but just like any other video you'll see on YouTube or anything else these days, all these bikes, they've always been compared to about the same size as a 600, and they genuinely are. I've had two CBR600s, an 07 and an 08, and both of them ran and felt just as comfortable as me sitting on top of this bike and running this bike. They just absolutely destroy. But they catered them towards getting into the corners, in and out as quickly as possible. And that's what I absolutely love doing. So that was the main reason for me buying a CBR1000 versus any of the other leader bikes. You know, a lot of people say, you know, like the S1000RR, the BMW S1000RR, the ZX10, the all these other bikes have, you know, all these other bikes have way more power and stuff, and that they're faster. They got top speed. The Yamaha R1, you know, all those bikes, they, you know, they look like they would have more top speed and stuff, having as much power as they do. But this bike really holds with them. It sticks with them. It stays with them. They don't just like pull away and you can't, you know, keep up with them. I do highly recommend getting a flash and tune done on the bike, because that's really going to help make power for you. You know, that's really going to unlock the bike itself. You know, there's one of those things that, like, it doesn't make it from the factory, but once you flash and tune it and unlock all that power, all the torque and everything, yeah, it 100% has it. It definitely does. But this bike is absolutely wonderful. I love this bike. I love how it handles, how it rides. It's so smooth. You know, I got 6 different, you know, suspension settings. I got 3 engine braking modes. I got 3 wheelie control modes. I got 3 traction control modes, and then I have 9 power modes, which means essentially I could take this bike and put it in the least power mode and still have this bike perform and act as well, if not maybe just slightly better because of the other electronics, as a 600cc sports bike. It really genuinely is that great. It gives you that feeling like this bike can do everything a 600 can do, a 1000 can do. And it's that spot of, like, you know, a lot of these newer sports bikes, they kind of are going to the point that you can reduce the power so much that you can make the bike have less power, feel more comfortable, get you into that better position, get you in that more comfortability of riding them, being a 1000cc coming off of a 600. You know, I don't recommend necessarily like jumping from a smaller cc like a 400 or 500 directly onto a 1000, because that's a big leap. But you know, when I first got the CBR1000RR, rode those, I thought they had a ton of power, and then I got to thinking to myself, I'm like, you know, how much more power could the 1000cc actually have than the 600? And oh my gosh, I was 100% wrong. It definitely 1000% has a lot more power than I thought that it was actually going to have. And I mean, this bike, even today, this bike still scares me. It still makes me nervous doing certain things, you know, pulling on it hard, you know, speeding up, you know, getting on it. The wheel just constantly wants to come up on it. The traction control definitely helps keep me down and steady pulling and stuff. You know, I don't have any plans to do anything else with this bike. I don't feel like there's anything extra that I want to do. I may later on do little things, but for the most part, I'm pretty much done messing with this bike. It's just, there's nothing else I generally want to do with the bike. I don't want to upgrade it no more. That, you know, there might be little things that I upgrade or mess with and stuff, but for the most part, it's kind of the way I ride it, the style of it's kind of the way I ride it, set up, catered to me. And that's the cool thing about, you know, motorcycles. You know, you can kind of do with them how you want and get them set up and you know, cater the bike to how you want to ride. You know, if you ride a 1000cc sports bike and you had rode a 600 before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, it's always that cocky little person in the back of your head telling you, hey, it's you know, it's 400 cc's, it's a jump, yeah, but it can't be that much more. And then, you know, you're on your 600 and you're playing around with other 1000s and stuff. You're like, okay, I mean, they're pulling away from me and stuff, but until you get on 1000, until you know the full raw potential and power of a 1000cc, being on one, owning one, and riding one, especially a daily one, you notice very, very quickly just how much extra power it has over a 600cc sport bike. It is absolutely insane. Now, I've had this bike since about 3-4 months after my accident happened, and I've had this, I've rode this, so as everybody can see in my videos, I do live in Georgia. Okay, I'm not going to beat around the bush about that. I do live in Georgia. I drove down to Jacksonville, Florida. Now, I'm not going to tell you how long it took me to get down there, but I drove down to Jacksonville, Florida, and picked up this bike. And the guy who had it before me, apparently he was just, I guess he was having to move or something. He really genuinely didn't want to have to give up the bike, but he wanted to get it gone, so because he was moving and he just didn't want to hassle it all the way where he was gone. Plus he had another bike as well, so it's not like he just kind of gave up the bike life altogether. He definitely had another bike that I suppose he was taking with him. At least the way he was talking, he was taking that one with him. And I rode all the way down there. I picked it up. It had a little less than 6,000 miles on it, and I've had it ever since. And it currently has just over 11,000 miles. So So I put about 5,000 miles. I put about as almost as many miles on it as he had in his time owning it as I have in a couple of months. I want to say maybe I've owned this for 6 months. Around that time, maybe 6-7 months or so I've owned this bike, maybe 8. Nah, it's got to be less than that. It'd probably be about, probably about 6 or 7 months. And I absolutely love this bike. I'm very pleased and happy with this bike, and I'm glad that it can do everything that it does. I enjoy the power on it. It's very comfortable. The seating position's great for me. I'm probably about normal average height as far as a male goes. So, but that's it. That's my consensus on my bike. Hope you enjoy this video. Till next time, as always, ride safe.